Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on vertical farming. We have our world famous speaker, Dr. Tamanna and Professor David Smith. Dr. Tamanna, what you want to discuss about vertical farming?
Farming is an amazing way of agriculture, and to put into the whole frame that it has many benefits which this model provides maximum output with minimal environmental impact. So the environment usage is minimum, but it's and a far less space is required as far as vertical farming is concerned. With resources at a premium, it will become increasingly difficult to maintain food production using traditional farming. So now new form of farming is being devised, and that is vertical farming. So what it does, it utilizes less water and space. With vertical farming techniques, farmers can use 98% less water and 99% less land. That's amazing. People in the developing world, we need, because we are so populated, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, we are so populated, we need less land and less water for for agriculture to grow. So vertical farming is going to do super duper work for our countries, and by 2050, around 80% of the world population will live in urban areas. This population will mean a higher demand for food in areas where land is the hardest to come by. In these large urban centers, vertical farming offers a way to meet this increased demand for food without the need for vast fields. Then increase production all year. It can increase production all year. For example, in India, we have certain crops which are grown in a certain time, and winters we have a different crop which is grown. But this is not so with vertical farming. It can grow throughout the seasons. So indoor vertical farming often includes practice called controlled environmental agriculture, or CEA. CEA involves a series of technologies designed around providing optimal conditions for plants. It controls factors like temperature, lighting, and humidity to allow farmers to grow plants that would otherwise not be suitable for the climate and weather. So many of these things are there, which then food desert solution. For finally, a vertical farm can solve the increasing problem of food deserts in heavily populated areas that lack access to fresh food such as fruits and vegetables. Because vertical farms can be constructed with small footprints and can even be integrated into existing buildings and rooftops, vertical farming has already started to produce food oases where deserts once existed. So even in the deserts, vertical farming can be helpful. So places where the deserts are there and water is less, and for example, in our countries where population is more, vertical farming can create major changes in the world. And once populated countries do well, the less populated country will get more resources to develop their own infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, what you want to discuss about vertical farming and what is the vertical farming and how does it different from traditional farming method?
Well, Dr. Sri, thank you. And Dr. Tamara, great introduction is that I can go ahead and build up on. As she said, vertical farming is an innovative agro agricultural practice where crops are grown in vertical stacked layers. and it really takes the use of several advances in different sciences and hydroponics and aquaponics and aeroponics and others to move this forward. And as you said, it does result in some higher productivity, and particularly when you look at areas where there is not an environment for that. So vertical farming, for example, has been used in the downtown New York area, New York City area. It's been used in the desert, like the Middle East and others, where they could not really grow crops like that. And because you're stacking them vertically, it makes much more efficient use of space. And as she was saying, even you can convert existing buildings from warehouses to actually high-rise buildings. And some of the new apartment and condo buildings, they're incorporating vertical farming as part of the initial design for all types of benefits. For the internal vertical farming, you can grow year round, even in conditions that aren't there. And vertical farming is very uh, good for the water efficiency. Now, there's other costs and other things with it. Uh, but the other thing with vertical farming, which is kind of interesting, is because you are in total control of the environment, you're in total control of what's being used with it. You can refine the environmental conditions to enhance the crop quality. So it can improve nutrition and other things coming out of the vertical farming environment. And the vertical farming market is growing. The market in 2022 was US dollars about $4.16 billion and is projected to grow very significantly. Some of the projections say that by 2030, it's expected to reach right at $28 billion annually, which is a compound annual growth rate of over 27%. And it's being deployed globally. The largest single market, though, is the United States. Excuse me, at about 39% in 2022. And you really see the benefits there. You know, Tamara spoke about a lot of them with the climate control and others, but it also, uh, like I said earlier, provides a solution where there is not adequate soil and adequate land to produce crops. And as urban populations increase, the demand for food and particularly vegetables rises. And this is a way to begin to meet that need. And one of the things we did learn from COVID is it highlighted the importance of local food production and the indoor and vertical farms uh, that are enabled by this really help supply some of the supply chain disruptions that were there. Now, let's just go into uh, some of the cost comparisons, Dr. Shreve, kind of what you asked about earlier. In that, in vertical farming, there's some fairly significant upfront cost because it not just includes infrastructure, includes lighting systems, climate control systems, ways to provide nutriments, water, and others to it, and automation technologies, which require really a substantial investment. Versus traditional agriculture, you have initial costs, but they primarily involve land acquisition, machinery, tractors, things like that, and basic infrastructure. The operating cost on vertical farming is, for example, energy. Vertical farms use artificial lighting, which can be expensive. However, some of the new advancements in some of the LED technology have really made some extremely energy efficient options available. Labor, vertical farms require less manual labor due to automation, but you do have to have skilled technicians to manage the systems. And in vertical farming, they make extensive use of sensors and these sensors allow the hydroponics and the aeroponic systems to operate very efficiently. And you can optimize the cost there versus traditional agriculture. You know, they uh, re- rely on natural sunlight and rainwater to help reduce energy costs. And then also irrigation, which can be expensive and unpredictable. Labor in a traditional farm is pretty intensive. Planting, harvesting, pest control, and others require human resources. And you see more pesticides and fertilizer used in traditional agriculture than you do in vertical farming. And the crop yield in vertical farming are significantly higher per square foot than it is in traditional agriculture. And one of the things you see consistently as you look across the literature is that the crops which are yielded in vertical farming uh, have a higher yield per square foot than what you see in traditional agriculture. Uh, and the crop variety is pretty good there. However, traditional agriculture offers a wider range of crop options, including grains and fruit trees and things that you do not see in vertical farming. Uh, environmental impacts. Uh, vertical farming requires less land, conserves water, doesn't use pesticides and others. Where traditional agriculture, there's large land conversion, the soil gets degraded over time, and water pollution are common challenges. So you see all of those things come into play there. And like I said, the crop choices are wider in traditional farming, but you see a bunch of particularly herbs, microgreens, leafy greens, lettuce, chard, kale, spinach, and other crops like tomatoes, strawberries, cucumbers, chives, and others grown in the vertical farms. And so it's a very interesting uh, take on a way to solve some of the world's problems, Dr. Shree. And I mean, there's many other elements we can get into. We can get into a little bit later regulatory. We can get into some of the really interesting future trends. But I think that's probably a good initial set of comments for you, Dr. Shree.
Thank you. Thank you. My next question is to Dr. Tamana. What are the main benefits of vertical farming in terms of sustainability and resource efficiency?
Yeah, now as far as India is concerned, we are like more than 140 crore people in India. And on the one hand, this would mean higher demographic dividends, which is advantageous for the economy, while on the other hand, the problem of resource scarcity looms large, especially for food security. So, food security is a major research area in India also. You know, in universities, food security is a major topic to be studied. So, mitigating this is an arduous task since there is no scope for an increase in the cultivable area. So, here, this is where vertical farming is becoming important. Vertical farming is an indigenous solution to food security concerns. It is one of the best ways to maximize production in small areas, making vertical farming in India a profitable venture. In this article, in one of the research articles, it was very clearly mentioned that how India can benefit uh, from uh, from this particular technology. And what we need to see is that uh, people around the world are able to use this particular technology, uh, taking it from India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know much about Bangladesh and Pakistan, but India is developing vertical farming in a big way. because obviously we do have more resources, because it's a big country. We have big resources, and to meet the demand increase, we need to produce more food globally. So now the worldwide, you have seen in the Ukraine Russian war, how Africa suffered. So vertical farming would be needed in many of the uh, African countries too, so that they are able to face any kind of export or import problems which they might face because of wars or any unseen unforeseen problems. So black grain problem which happened, and uh, EU, for example, banned Russian food to be transported to African countries. So these things are there, and so if for the uninitiated, vertical farming is a form of farming that typically takes place indoors with plants grown in controlled environments and stacked, you guessed it, vertically. So it is basically, it grows its plants indoors. So even fertilizers are used less, and and countries like India, for example, where we have a lot of cows and animals, they can be used as fresh fertilizers for from their you know so that's our thing. With over 900 million raised for vertical marketing ventures, competition to the feed the world is growing for good reason. We are living in critical time for its development, where the need of the world are converging with advancements in technology. So not only just the need for food is increasing, but also technology to have the rightful agricultural growth is also developing. So, where the need of world are converging with advancement in technology, machine learning, and AI, robotics and food science to increase a healthy competition among companies looking in capture looking to capture this enormous opportunity. So obviously the competition is going to be there between the countries, and so competition is never always negative. It also means that the best possible structures can be developed by and technology can also lead to um, lesser amount of money being spent, and because obviously the price reduces the minute capitalism comes in. So yeah, that's what I would like.
Thank you, Professor David Smith.
Three great comments by her. Is this there? Now there are also some real interesting regulatory impacts surrounding vertical farming, and some of them, for example, in the United States, there's zoning laws, and urban farming startups really face some challenges related to these laws, which dictate what activities are allowed within different zones of urban areas. And since vertical farming was not envisioned by urban planners, uh, modernizing these zoning laws is really critical to unlock the social, economic, and environmental benefits of vertical farming, particularly in dense urban environments. And there's really needs to be clarity on some of the terms used, such as the aquaponics, the hydroponics, and others, and zones. In the EU, it's very interesting because under current EU rules, vertical farming is not considered organic farming. And so you have to, in EU, look at a special set of certifications to be to be used as a standard for vertical farming. And also, as in most countries, there's considerable effort in the European Union right now for the training and education opportunities for vertical farmers, both their managers, workers, and their technicians. And this is a common. What's curious is most of the organic regulations around the world demand soil as a feature of organic farming. And that's a real challenge for most of the vertical farms because they do not use soil. You see in other parts of the world, in Asia and some of the others, the vertical farming industry lacks legislation and quality standards. And so, what we're going to be seeing in the regulatory environment for vertical farming is establishing clear guidelines on what is the quality, what's the data, what's the training standards that are required there, and how do the crops fit the definitions. For example, vertical farming is almost by definition organic farming because of the way it's delivered, but then it falls outside the definitions that have been placed around it. And you begin to look at some of the, like I said, the key trends. Currently, Dubai has the world's largest vertical farm, and the farm is said to produce over 900 tons of leafy greens annually while consuming 95% less water. So you can see, using that as an example, it's really good impact on that. And there's shrinking areas around the country where there's good agricultural land area that can be used to grow crops, particularly as you look at urbanization expands, water supply decreases, the available land per person's declining, and weather has become very unpredictable. And so you see that happening. Another one of the trends is that there's a growing demand for pesticide free food, and vertical farms, because they're in a controlled environment, reduce the needs for chemical inputs, which are already there. So, just having said this, there really is a need today for continuous innovation and research. So we need scientists, we need entrepreneurs, engineers to look at how you can try new crops in vertical farms, how you can improve the lighting system, how can you include the aquaponics and hydroponics system, and how can you improve the automated systems. And how do you do all this in an energy efficient way that can have the impact that we think we need for the growth of this area? So, Sharif, I hope this answered your question.
Yes, thank you. My next
David,
question.
please, David, please include political theorists too, because like they can really help understand the vertical farming, and help scientists in a particular way. So yeah, that
Agreed.
is also.
Okay, thank you. My next question is like, what are the some common crops grow in the vertical farming, and how do they thrive in the environment?
I I guess many fruits, as well as like apples, and many of the other oranges, etc., and cauliflower, etc. They can be used in the the basic system of vertical farming. And here I would also like to mention that the importance of feminist analysis in urban agricultural research. So the importance of gender in urban agriculture development and assessment has been well documented in women feeding cities. Women experience urban agriculture differently than men because of political, social, and economic factors. The experiences are impacted by social power relations and different rights and responsibilities, like who does what labor and who makes decisions and controls resources. However, gender is not the only identity factor that needs to be considered when analyzing the impact of UA. A person identity is made of many intersecting categories. Gender is important, but so is ethnicity, class, ability, and sexuality. For example, a program may help women sell their so this is the whole thing. They can sell it according to their own specialities. The person's identity is made by many intersecting categories, and a program may help women sell their produce at local market, but without acknowledging differences in class and assessment might miss that there is subgroup of women who belong to a less valued class within society than is welcome. So class is another issue, like money is issue. And the in India, the problem of farmer suicides is a major problem. And vertical farming would require at least some kind of money to be invested, and the government needs to do that, in a big way. And women and men together, as partners, need to work together. And women can really help in developing vertical farming, and the discrimination women face is not homogeneous. To properly assess barriers and successes and to suggest improvements to UA programming, we need to consider all the aspects of women identities and how power relations affect them. So power relations obviously affect them, and so women and men have different abilities to look at UA or vertical farming. So uh, uh, in Ecuador, etc., there have been many cases where this particular issue is developed. And the Lorraine Center for Sustainable Food System, a member of RALF Global Participation, supports research on feminist UA analysis in Ecuador, a participatory urban agriculture project that is also a partner. The goal of analysis is to explore opportunities and strengths of the project, analyze the results using a feminist framework. And so women, I mean, obviously, what I'm trying to say is that women are the base of the house. They are the ones who are doing the all the kitchen work. So whether growing a farm in the backyard of their house, or as a farmer, she is helping her husband, and in raising of agriculture. This particular aspect is majorly important, that women have to be worldwide. It's just not one country, especially the developing countries which are poorer in nature. Women, rather than getting people to work, women are employed from the family to look after this particular aspect. Yes.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, what are some benefits and challenges of vertical farming?
Well, there's a lot of benefits and challenges of vertical farming, and you particularly can see them as you look at how it's going to be used in the developing world and others. Uh, there's really a quest for solutions as you look at this. Uh, and you have to understand that the approaches are very different, because one, you have all the unknowns of the weather and of what can happen around you, and of the challenges with how that affects soil conditions and other things like that. In the other area, though, you've got the really controlled environment that you have in vertical farming, particularly vertical farming that is indoors. So some of the benefits, like we talked before, is higher productivity in less space because it really allows you to maximize space utilization. And from an urban development perspective, the ability to take older buildings that have fallen out of active use, particularly as technology and other things have advances, and repurpose them for vertical farming is a big benefit. Another big benefit of vertical farming is year-round production because they operate regardless of weather conditions or the seasons. And you have fresh produce that can grow throughout the year. And the major crops out of vertical farms are leafy greens and others like that, herbs, and vegetables. Uh, there's also reduced water usage. I mentioned earlier, with the largest vertical farm in Dubai, they use 95% less water compared to traditional ones. And because they're using the sensors and precise delivery of nutrients to the crops, there's minimized waste. And it's grown closer to where it's consumed. So the supply chain is reduced and fresher food reaches out quicker. There's improved crop yield because you're in a controlled environment again. And the goal with vertical farming is for it to dramatically improve sustainability practices because there's less land dependence, lowers carbon emissions, and you can use reusable materials in there, such as recycled plastic and things to help that. Some of the challenges is energy dependence because vertical farms depend heavily on artificial lighting and climate control systems. And if I look at science, those are areas that there's a lot of science that needs to be uh, still undertaken. But energy costs can be significant in a vertical farm. You have to have advanced technical knowledge because they require expertise in technologies, in automation, in sensors, and in crop management. So you really have to have skilled personnel, much more so than on a traditional farm. And there is a susceptibility to waterborne disease and pests. So it can be vulnerable to these pests or other diseases and things. But preventive measures are critical in making sure the vertical farm does not have these. And if you balance uh, the sensing and domains with a good data system, that can be controlled very easily. But Sharif, those are really some of the top level uh, benefits and challenges you see in uh, uh, the vertical farming marketplace. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Tamanna, what's your closing remarks for today?
Yeah, I mean, I feel that, Dr. Sharif and David, I feel that, people need food, and by 2050, 9.8 billion population will be there of the earth. So, to meet the demand increase, we need to produce more food globally. So, food security is a major topic of concern, and more efficiently in a way that doesn't further harm the planet. While it would be easy to feel overwhelmed by enormity of such a problem, one promising solution is vertical farming. For the uninitiated, vertical farming is a form of farming that typically takes place indoors and plants within. So, uh, I believe in potential of vertical farming to feed millions and maybe billions of people, make fresh produce locally available in a way we have never seen, and fundamentally change the way food reaches our plates. Some are concerned that it would be a grave disaster that cripples environmental progresses and further gentrifies our cities. It's too early to know which it will be, but let's explore the possibilities.
Thank you. Professor David Smith, what's your closing remarks for today?
Well, Sharif, great show as always. Now, let me throw a couple of comments in my closing comments about the the reasons vertical farming is needed in developing countries. You see urbanization and raising demand for food stocks in developing countries, and the urban countries are experiencing rapid urbanization. The forecast is by 2026, over 70% of the developing countries will have their population expected to live in cities. And so vertical farming is a solution to help meet this move from the rural environments to the urban environments in developing countries. And there's increasing demand to get the foods closer to where it's consumed. Some of the barriers to entry in developing nations is the initial financial investment. Like we said before, it can be expensive of setting it up, and you see that. There are some unique models that we're seeing, though. While some of the farms, particularly in some of the developing nations, for example, in Africa, they're trying to adapt the vertical farming to some of the local conditions, particularly like the available resources and the market demand, because some of the crops that uh, grow both best in vertical farms are not ones that the local citizens have had much experience with, because the land conditions around them would not support it. You need to see community engagement in the developing countries and educate them about the vertical farming's benefits. That's really critical. And then we always talk about the regulatory impact. You have to have policy support. Governments can provide an important role by providing incentives, easing regulations, easing zoning, changing zoning laws, and promoting sustainable agriculture. And you can also see, particularly in the developing nations, a bunch of science work being done and experimentation on adapting the local crops to it. And by doing this with the local crops, it can enhance the food security as well. And you see all of these and how they can play. But the science needs I just mentioned are, for example, the advanced lighting systems and how that can be done, and how you can tailor the different frequencies of light to promote growth in actually at different phases of the crop growth. You have to control the climate. So you need to control the temperature, the humidity, the CO2 levels, and ventilation are critical there. So you need to develop, I guess, a smart system that can control all of those. And there needs to be research done on the nutrient formulations that are applied there. How do you recycle that? How do you clean it? How do you minimize waste? The control and data systems, always a lot of work on that, because we know that it changes there. Also, how do you what's the science that was fine tune the systems to yield? And how do we get into sustainable practice there? And, it really is a cutting edge agricultural process that holds promise for the future. And there's plenty of people beginning to look at them. There's a quest for solutions. There's looking at the sustainability there. But vertical farming is so exciting, but it's essential to address these challenges really holistically, because it is a systems approach to farming, much more than traditional uh, agriculture there. So Sharif is a solution that is applicable globally, and one which there's opportunities for science and research. There's opportunities for entrepreneurs. There's opportunities, particularly as you see the increased urbanization uh, especially in developing countries, that make this an exciting opportunity, Dr. Sri, for your students and for the listeners of your program. So again, thank you for letting me be part of this.
Thank you
I
for
just,
your
I
excellent
just,
presentation.
I just wanted to say add something that it's like what also Professor David and Dr. Sharif we need is the ethically possessing ethical politicians, farmers, forest officers, NGOs, scientists, social scientists, political theorists, everybody to come together because food security is the most important need of the world right now, because by 2050 our population is going to be on it would almost collapse the world. So what we need is that all of them should come together and use their own technologies and brains to get a better system for food security. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tamanna, and thank you, Professor David Smith, for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. Thank you. Bye bye, and take care.
Bye bye.